Welcome to lesson 5 of the quadratic function. We are learning about the max and min of quadratic functions. So just to recall, there's 3 different forms of quadratic functions. We're going to use each of them and find the max and min. So first one is the vertex. Vertex form gives you the vertex. So we have the function 3x minus x squared plus 3. Your vertex comes from these two numbers. So the vertex is 6, 3. You also have this coefficient here, which is positive, so this tells you that it opens up. You can draw a little sketch of this function. Opens up, and there's the vertex. So it has a minimum here. There is no maximum, but we have a minimum. At 6, 3. So the minimum value itself would be the y value. So that's the minimum value your function can have, which is 3. If you are given the factored form, you can simply take the x-intercepts first. So x-intercepts. So you have one coming from the first bracket, and you have another one coming from the second bracket. Your x-intercepts basically come from what value makes this whole bracket become 0. So if I plugged in a 3 in my first bracket, the whole thing becomes 0. So I need to figure out what value of x makes my whole bracket equal 0. So we can just set it as 0 equals 2x plus 5, and then solve for x. Negative 5 equals 2x. Negative 5 over 2 is equal to x. So there's my two x-intercepts, 3 and negative 5 over 2. So recall, just think back to the assignment you were doing yesterday. If you have the x-intercepts, you can find the midpoint to help you find the vertex. So we'll do the exact same process. To find the vertex, you find the midpoint between the x-intercepts, or find the average. So x equals 3 plus negative 5 over 2 over 2. So this is like 3 and minus 2.5. So you have 0.5 over 2. You can put that in your calculator. It'll give you 0.25. You could also do fractions like 1 over 4. That's totally fine. Let's also find the y value for your vertex. We're going to take our function and then plug in 0.25 into x. 0.25 minus 3, 2 times 0.25 plus 5. You should have negative 2 times negative 2.75 times 5.5. If you try it in your calculator. Altogether, it should give you 30.25. So again, let's give it a sketch. I know my a value or the coefficient is negative, which makes it open, down. So my graph would look something like this. And there is a vertex. So this is the maximum point because that's the highest point in your graph. Maximum at 0.25, that's your x value, comma, 30.25, that's your y value. So you find your vertex and you also consider your coefficient, like your a value, to figure out is it going to be a maximum or a minimum. Last one is a standard form. Standard form isn't very helpful when it comes to looking for the vertex, so you actually have to convert it either into the vertex form or the factored form. I'll show you two ways. So method 1, we're going to convert it into the vertex form. We do this by a process called completing the square. I may ask you later on a quiz or a test to specifically show me, can you complete the square to find the vertex form? So it's important for you to know how to do this process. So first things first, you're going to take the first two terms. So negative 5x squared plus 40x plus 100. Take the first two terms. We're going to common factor whatever coefficient is in front of x squared. So I'm going to common factor a negative 5. So negative 5 out of here and a negative 5 out of here, which is basically dividing each of them by negative 5. I'm left with x squared minus 8x plus 100 still stays outside. Now I'd like to turn this bracket into a perfect square. Remember, a perfect square looks like this. A plus b squared will give you a squared plus a 2ab plus b squared. Or you could have the negative version, a minus b squared equals a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Remember, that's just general formula. So if I want to turn this into a perfect square, here's my trick. I think about dividing this middle number in half and then squaring it. So you want to divide the negative 8 in half, which gives you negative 4, and then you want to square that number. That's the number that you want to add and subtract into the bracket. So next step, negative 5. X squared minus 8x. We're going to take 16, add 16 and subtract 16. If you add and subtract the same number, it has the same effect as doing like adding 0, right? So it doesn't affect the whole meaning, but this gives us something to make a perfect square. So this is the only portion I'm interested in to make a perfect square. This negative 16, I'm going to take it out of my bracket by multiplying negative 5 to it. Okay? You can't just ignore the negative 5. Make sure you multiply it. Negative 5x squared minus 8x plus 16 will stay the same. this negative 16 will exit my bracket, but you have to multiply this negative 5 as it exits the bracket. So negative 5 times negative 16 gives you 80. So plus 100. All of this is to make the bracket here a perfect square. So it kind of looks something like this. So specifically this second portion. So hopefully you can recognize that, oh, now this is a perfect square because I have some number times 2 becomes your middle number, and then some number to the power of 2, like exponent 2, gives you that third number. So negative 5x minus 4 squared, and then I'm just going to add these numbers together, plus 180. Okay, so I have taken this and turned it into a perfect square. Now it looks like the vertex form, and I can say my vertex is 4, 180 from these two numbers. It also opens down because my a value is negative. So it looks like an open down, and there's my vertex. So I guess we can also conclude that this is a maximum. Because that's the maximum on the graph. All right, method number 2. The factored form. We are going to take the standard form and make it into the factored form. Well, you're actually just going to use the factoring methods we've used in lesson 3. So you have your function here. You want to start by saying, can you common factor any numbers out? And yes, I can common factor the negative 5. I'm left with x squared minus 8x minus 20. You can do the MAN method or whatever method helps you with factoring. I'm only going to use the inside, the negative 5 that I've common factored out. I don't need to worry about it. Just keep writing it, but don't touch it. So multiplies to negative 20, adds to negative 8, my two numbers, negative 10 and positive 2. This is a simple trinomial, meaning in front of the x squared I have a 1. There's no other number. So I'm going to put the negative 5, and I'm just going to go straight into writing my brackets. X minus 10, x plus 2. If this was not a simple trinomial, you would have to go into decomposition. So my x-intercepts, I have x equals 10 and negative 2 from both of these brackets. So we're going back to our factored form that we did up here. So you have your x-intercepts. Let's find the midpoint. So if I want to find the vertex, we're just going to take the x-intercepts 10 and then add the negative 2 and divide it all by 2. So 8 divided by 2, which is 4. And what's my y value when I plug in 4? Negative 5 times 4 squared plus 40 times 4 plus 100